All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining me and us this morning. I'm super excited to share this presentation I've been working hard on with everybody and to kind of share a little bit of knowledge and activities and games that have worked for us in the past and also hopefully will work for everybody else. But a bit about me before I start, just so that you know I have some credibility to what I'm kind of talking about. So my background is social service work at the college here. However, I'm not in that role, obviously. Now I'm more of a community education kind of role. But in the past, I've done child welfare and I've worked in youth outreach with addictions, mental health. And before that, I was actually a summer camp counselor. And I had done a few years at summer camps around the city here, a few March break camps. So I've really taken what I've learned there and kind of integrated what I'm doing now, which is more in the education, literacy, numeracy kind of ways. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how we're going to integrate literacy and numeracy into summer programs with fun spins. And hopefully you have fun with me today. So a bit of housekeeping before we get started. So I have a few definition bubbles just to make sure everyone's on the same page. You'll see that at the bottom of our activity and games slides, there'll be a hot pepper up to 3, indicating the spicy level, I guess, of the activity. And this kind of just talks about how complex it may be to prepare or facilitate and just the overall delivery of the activity. Don't let this get in the way, though, of trying some activities that may be a bit spicier. They are very fun still. But just maybe limit yourself to 1 a day, but we'll kind of go a little bit more over that. There'll also be a chance to interact during the presentation. We have 3 or 4 times where I'll be asking you to kind of share your ideas and reflect a little bit. So go ahead and you can scan that QR code and it'll bring you to the engagement slide, but we'll get there in just soon. And then again, as Sandra said, if you have questions, just write them in the chat, and I'm going to have Jen and Sandra monitor just to make sure that I don't miss anything. But there will be time for questions at the end as well. Okay. All right. So that being said, I'll just get everyone to, if you would like to participate, we're going to do a little group warm up here, see how everyone's feeling today. So you can go ahead and scan that QR code with your mobile device. And there's also going to be a link in the chat where you can use on your web browser as well. You can go ahead and scan that, and it's going to bring you to a slide that's going to ask about how we're doing today, because it's good to check in. Good to check in. So I'll just let everyone kind of navigate over there. So is this working? Can you see the slide? Yeah, it should be. All right, so we got some pins already. So you can go ahead and pin how you're feeling today. Personally, I woke up and I was a 7 because I had this presentation today, but now I'm feeling a bit more of maybe I guess a 1 currently, but that's good to see how people are feeling today. Pretty relaxed. That's good. That's good. Someone's feeling a little angry today. That's all right. Maybe a little irritated. Maybe woke up on the right side of bed. That's okay. And it's good to check in with your participants and your kids to just see how they're doing, because really we know that if someone's not feeling well, or someone's had an argument, or maybe just kind of woke up and before program and just was not feeling it. It really can impact your whole day and how you feel. So it's good to check in with the kiddos and see how they're doing right off the bat. Thanks to everyone for participating. That's awesome. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move us back over here. All right. Great. Okay, so today's framework. So these are things that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about summer learning loss and scaffolding and what that means. We're going to talk about a couple program models, literacy and numeracy in general, and then physical literacy, some arts and STEM, meaning science, technology, engineering, and math, and how we're going to integrate maybe some of those ideas into your programs, and then some tips on facilitation, a little bit about social emotional learning. And there is another presentation a little later on about social emotional learning that I hope you'll stick around for as well. Okay, so what is summer learning loss? So before I had done this really delved into this presentation, I didn't really know what summer learning loss is too in depth, but you know, in layman's terms, it's that it's between those summer months of learning. Students can lose up to 30% of a school's year worth of learning, and this means over 2.5 math skills are lost, 1 month of overall learning loss, and 6 weeks are actually spent in the new year, kind of relearning things, which can take up a bit of time. We all know that kind of that first 6 weeks is a lot of just catching up from the last year. But we know that 2 to 3 hours a week during summer vacation can help prevent learning loss, and that's actually not much a day. That's only about not even 30 minutes a day. So that's actually really feasible. All right, so some tips for your programs in regards to mitigating summer learning loss are we're going to try and read as much as we can. So this means integrating reading into your programs, whether it's morning readings, readings before lunch, like using transitions between games and activities to read, and that means staying consistent. And like every morning, we're going to spend 10 minutes and we're going to have a reading circle, and that's how we're going to start our mornings, kind of thing. We're going to allow real life learning opportunities. So that's like, if we're at a bus stop, okay, let's have the kids like read the bus stop and show them how real life, these are things that are relevant in real life. We're going to be enthusiastic about learning. Many times I hear, I don't like math. No, we love math. We love learning. It's tough, and that's okay, but we need to be enthusiastic and have a positive outlook on it, because then it will transfer into the kids as well. We're going to encourage them to reflect on maybe their year, on themselves, and encourage that autonomy, so that independence. And we're going to have maybe some weekly themes, whether it's like those STEM-based themes like science and nature, or even like funner themes like sports, superheroes, or even just like creative writing themes or journalism themes. And you can find your learners' baselines. What I mean by this is just kind of see where they're at in regards to their learning and how they feel about learning, and how we can maybe spin it so that learning isn't just sitting at a desk and doing fractions. It's like how do we make that into real life, right? And we're going to also encourage families and the kiddos to read at home too, and we're going to make it fun. Okay, so scaffolding. So scaffolding is structured assistance or guidance that helps someone build confidence and pushes their limits to develop new skills and tasks. So an example of this is when you're reading with a kid and they're struggling with a word, instead of just giving them the word, maybe helping them sound it out, right? Or saying where have we seen this word before? Things like that, and not just giving them the answers, but giving them equitable opportunities to figure out their answers on their own, so that they can have that independence throughout their life. So some tips are, we're going to provide choices, and what I mean by this is, how do you want to learn? What do you want to learn? Where do you want to learn? Do you want to learn inside? Do we want to play games outside? It's really giving them that autonomy. And we're going to encourage them to go to where they know. So what I mean by that is, if we're doing some math questions and we're doing, for example, multiplying 5 times 3, well, they may know that 5 times 2 is 10. So encourage them to go there first and then work on that. Being a positive role model, allowing safe mistakes. It's okay if the kid, draws a J and it's backwards. Let them continue, writing the word, and then maybe go back. But it's okay to make those mistakes, because really We want to encourage that that kind of growth mindset and the strengths perspective, right? And with that, we can provide equitable instructions. So some kids may learn better or by reading a poster. Some kids may learn better by having, you know, an example shown. Some kids may learn better by watching a video. We can break down instructions into smaller tasks. I know that with my ADHD, if you give me 4 or even 2 instructions in a row, I will only remember the first one. So just breaking things down into smaller tasks really can help. And so we're going to have patience and allow gradual release, which is basically the I do, we do, you do method, which is where you show, and then you do it together, and then you allow them to do. And sometimes this takes a while for them to get to the you do, but that's okay. We need to have patience. And we're going to ask those open-ended questions and start small. So here's a little example, very, very simple example of scaffolding in regards to fractions and using the I do, you do, we do, or sorry, I do, we do, you do. So I do, so we can have visual aids to show a whole, half, and quarters of fractions using pizza. Who doesn't love pizza, right? So we're going to show that visually. Maybe we can even, if it's pizza day, we can even do a little fractions kind of activity with the pizzas themselves, right? Or maybe we'll make pizza, and there's a whole bunch of fractions that comes with baking or cooking. We do. So then say, okay, there are 2 of us, so let's divide this pizza in half. So then you do that together, and each of you get 1/2. And then the you do, okay, now your friend wants a pizza. Please divide your pizza slice in half. So then they take their slice and they do exactly what you just did, but on a smaller scale with their own. And it gives them the opportunity to show what they've learned. And then you can also follow up by saying, okay, let's divide this whole pizza equally among 4 people, which is quarters. Okay, so program model. So these are just a couple program models that I've kind of thought of and used maybe in the past. First of all, we have the learning based model, which is going to be those kind of like programs that are typically more educational based in general. So like those art programs, those creative writing programs, maybe those math programs, and you're going to see like the majority of the time is going to be spent in some sort of educational way, whether you're playing math games, reading together, whatever that may be. So in this example, we have creative writing as that example. And then you're also going to have some times for typical games and sports, free time, and maybe some reading and some art. So this could be, a day plan, I guess you could say, of a typical summer program. And it just kind of touches on some creative writing elements like nature poems. So finding 5 things you see, hear, smell, and touch. And they can do this writing it down. They can do this together. And then some reading circles, literacy extensions based on your book. We'll kind of go into that a little bit later. And then you could play dodgeball, whatever kind of dodgeball you want. And then we have lunch and then some craft and STEM activities, some more creative writing, and then capture the flag at the end. And you'll find that, there will be moments between these games where you may have to have some sort of transition game or activity but that's where you can have those little reading moments or reading buddies or whatever that may be. And then the more traditional kind of summer camp model, we have your sports and games are going to be probably the bigger chunk of it, and that's going to be like those capture the flag, dodgeball kind of games. But then it is important to squeeze in some educational stuff too, and it doesn't have to be so overt, right? Like it can be kind of like hidden educational aspects that we'll kind of go through in a couple of games later on, and then other as in other kind of activities that you may want to do or we have some art in there too. And it really just depends on like the kids that you have too, right? Like if your kids are like, we don't like art, then you don't have to do art, or you can spin art in a way that's maybe not that traditional kind of painting or whatever it is. But it's really about finding out what the kids enjoy. So here we have an example of a typical model, and you still have those kind of like educational elements to it with the scavenger hunts and the relay races. In regards to the scavenger hunt, it's the same kind of thing in regards to the nature, right? You're finding things still. You may not be making a poem out of it, but that's the way that you can extend the activity as well, right? You can scaffold it as well. And then we have, some group games and slime in the afternoon. Who doesn't love slime? And some other relay races and reading. And even having reading at the end of the day while kids are being waited to pick up. All right, so like I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, here's some themes that you may want to try in your programs, like Space Week, superheroes, number ninjas, like a math program, and some resources like Number Ninjas and Junior Journalists we actually have created, and we'll be supplying to you after the presentation if you so choose to use those resources. So here's an example of a newsletter that Sandra actually sent me for her junior journalism journalist that she did at her program. And I chose this. This is just a one page of it, but I chose this one because I really enjoy the one story there in particular by Max there, Random Man. And he wrote, once there was a man and he got zapped. He was now a random man. He ate a bug. There was a war. Random Man didn't know what to do. And it's just so silly and simple, but it's awesome. And I'm sure he really enjoyed writing that. And I enjoy reading that. So thanks, Max, for that. All right, so in regards to reading tents, there's other ways that you can kind of integrate reading into your community without being in a kind of summer program. So historically, what we've done at United for Literacy is we've kind of brought ourselves into the community. And what I mean by that is we kind of just show up at places. So, you know what I mean? It depends on where you're at, but in Thunder Bay here, every Friday in the summer, we go to a park and we set up our reading tent or our tent, and we just encourage people to come and take a look at the books that we have, some activities that we have, and just kind of engage in that way. And it's really fun. It's a great way to get a tan, but it's also a great way to engage with your community. And so here, I just kind of have a little guide here, and we also have a reading tent guide that will also be supplied as a resource after the presentation. But pick a location, promote your event, set up your space. So maybe bring some blankets to put on the ground, some books, some activities. We have these like huge foam mats that I made a giant board game out of. So they're like those huge foam mats that you can stick together. And I just put a bunch of different activities on each one and I set them up. And then the kids just had a huge dice and they rolled it and they walked through, and on the activity, they would do the activity, and it was really fun. They just really enjoyed it. But there's lots of things that you can do without a lot of materials as well. And here's some pictures of so it's also a great way to engage with your volunteers if you have any, or interns. All right, so now we're going to talk about literacy and numeracy. All right, so to warm up here, we are going to play a game called Categories. And what you're going to do is you're going to read the prompt on the screen, and then you're going to type in the first word that comes to mind. And there are no wrong answers, okay? So you're going to go ahead and click that QR code again. And there will be on your phone, it may say the slide presenter has changed, so you can just change it. You just press that. Awesome. So we have some answers coming in already. So that's great. So yeah, so this is just a game that you can play with the kiddos. It's really fun. You can play it in a circle. You can play it with chart paper. You can have them write it down. You can have them act things out, whatever you want. And it's just a way to kind of get those creative juices flowing. Yeah, Thunder Bay is definitely Canadian nature, 100%. If you haven't been here, it's absolutely gorgeous in the summer. I really recommend coming. Yeah, lots of them. Maple, bears, green, lakes. Awesome. Interesting. Yeah. Bugs, definitely. I already have a few bug bites, and it's like, it's only been nice for like 3 days here. Like, come on. That's awesome. Thanks, everyone. Mosquitoes, yeah, exactly. Vibrant, yeah, it's beautiful in Canada. It really is. So yeah, there's no wrong answers for this one, right? Like kids, you could say Canadian nature, you could say anything. You could say blue. And it's not about judging, it's just about letting those creative juices kind of flow and engaging with your campers, and you may even learn something about them. All right, let's do another one. Let's do another one. All right, 2000s movies. Here we go. So it'll prompt you to change the screen. All right, so if you're a millennial like me, you'll know that you grew up in 2000s. So my idea of 2000s movies may be different than some other people's. But when I think of 2000s movies, I think of Mean Girls. I think of Lord of the Rings. Um, I think of uh, what's that movie called? I just watched it. I can't remember now. Shrek. Okay, yeah, actually, that's yep. She's the man. That's literally what it was. Yeah, she's the man with the man who binds. I love that movie. It's so good. Oh, Harry Potter's. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so that's awesome. And let's do another one. Stardust. We have Guardians. Yeah. Romeo Must Die. I haven't watched that one. Oh, there's a few with Leonardo in it too. Leonardo DiCaprio. I can't think of any right now though. Okay, last one here. Okay, summer memories. All right, so you only get one answer for this one, and this is just one word that you think of when you think of summer memories. Maybe even as a kid, right? Um, yeah, camping definitely, right? Who love camping in the summer. I think of maybe fishing, swimming. I went to a lot of soccer tournaments growing up, so I guess soccer in the summer. Ice cream, yum. Overnight camp, yeah. Summer camp in general, right? Being a summer camp counselor, even games, awesome. Running, yeah. Oh, it's gorgeous running in the summer. Outdoor concerts. Oh, I'm so glad we could get back to those. That's great. Frog catching, nice. Hunting Bigfoot. I definitely did that too. You folks are bringing back some memories for myself here. Awesome. Bonfires, yeah. Gelato, beautiful. Okay, thanks everyone for sharing. That's awesome. So yeah, so this is just one game that you can play with your kids, your summer camps as well. Oh, sorry. All right, so just in a couple other warm-ups here. So in regards to the five things activity, that's very similar to kind of what we just did in regards to categories. The silent order up is a good one. If you find that things maybe are getting a little chaotic and loud, it's a good way to kind of settle things down a bit and say, okay, but you have to tell the kids that they must line up in a certain order, whether it's small, shortest to tallest, oldest to youngest, whatever it is, A to Z, and but they must do it silently. So they cannot speak, but they can communicate in other ways. So it's a good way to kind of get those creative thinking juices flowing too, and maybe engage some older youth to help out as well. Group count is a good one too. So, and this will be provided after the slide as well, with tons of resources and games. Okay, so reading is fun, but why should we? Well, science the obvious. It encourages imagination, creativity, and critical thinking. It provides opportunities for social interaction and development. It builds receptive language skills involved in listening and speaking, which is foundational in our development. Reading aloud encourages other children to try reading aloud. I actually had a student at one of my after school programs wanting to read aloud a couple weeks ago because I read aloud every time I go there first thing, and he was like, "Hey, I want to read this time." I was like, "Yeah, that's awesome. Let's do it." So we actually got to read to the kids, which was awesome. He did a great job. It helps kids deconceptualize language, and by that I mean Deconceptualizing is talking about things that are not here now. So whether that's memories, experiences, values, things that aren't really physical. And it helps them do that, which is another key thing in children development. Builds their self-confidence, and it promotes a positive outlook on reading. And we know that the attitude and effective desire to read, rather than someone's skill or ability, determines whether they choose to read or not. How many of us still read as adults regularly? I don't know. I don't know how many. I've just started getting into it again. I'm making an effort to read every day. But it's tough. But it's about it's about your attitude towards it. It's about if you actually enjoy it. Because when we, especially as we get older, reading turns more into textbooks and stats and work kind of stuff. But it's important to keep that desire and that love of reading that we have as kids or may or hope to inspire at least, right? All right, so ways that you can integrate reading into your summer programs. Like I said earlier, have those daily book clubs, write instructions for your games and have the kids kind of figure it out and help them read it together. Creative writing activities such as camp newsletters, alpha poems, short stories. Independent reading activities, reading buddies, find holistic ways to read, like I said earlier, like bus stops or cooking or game instructions. Throw a Monopoly game on the board and see if they can figure it out. Reading instructions and help them. Literacy games and activities, and then the method of dear, drop everything and read, which is you yell dear and everyone drops literally everything, including camp counselors, all staff, everything, and they grab a book and they read for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever that is. And you can integrate that from day one into your programs and just have things readily available. Okay, so this is an example of a book that I've used in the past for reading as a group to kind of provide reflection and also kind of social emotional elements to it as well. So this book is about Oliver, who has a day that goes from bad to worse. Can he find his bad? Can he find a way to turn his bad day around? Spoiler, he does, which is great. So some themes are resilience, kindness, empathy, patience, advocacy, all those kind of great things that we want to inspire in kids to reflect on. So some extension ideas you can do with this book are how do you bounce back? So talking to your kids about the book and its theme of bouncing back, what that means, and what resilience means, and how Oliver showed resilience. And then you can have kids reflect on a time where they had to be resilient. Talk about that. You can get them to write it down, or you can just talk about it. And we know that discussions like this are like very, very helpful in child development. You can also do another example where you come up with ideas on things that kids may have to bounce back from, like missing the bus. How are they going to bounce back from them? How are they going to problem solve that, right? Losing $20 of your birthday money, having someone push in front of you in line, or spilling pizza sauce on your favorite shirt. How do kids bounce back? And starting to get them to think of ways that they can be resilient. Okay, so a couple literacy games, circle games, I guess you could say. So I really enjoy improv and acting and drama and that kind of stuff. So some of these games are I've scaled them to be able to be literacy based as well. But some games are just literacy based in it themselves, like ABC in a scene. So you choose 2 to 3 players, perform any scene. Starting with A, the first person their first word has to start with the letter A. So here's an example, and then the next person has to respond with their first word being the letter B as their first letter. Here's an example. All right, we're ready to go bowl. Do you have your gear? Player 2, balls, check. Knee pads, check. Shoes, check. And then C, can you go anywhere without your knee pads? Don't be a Debbie Downer. And then it just kind of goes on and on. So these kind of things, this may be a bit more complex for some kids, but you can do it. You could do all A's or all B's or however you want to do it. There's tons of ways that you can scale this game. And then word association is, this one's actually really fun. Players stand in a circle and two players say a random word. They can put up their hands and then count down from 3. Once they say their word, for example, tree, salad, you have to figure out a word between those words that associates with both. And again, there's no right or wrong answers. And once you have your word, 2 other people put their hands up, first 2 people, they say their words together and hopefully it matches. Sometimes it doesn't. I actually played this game once and we got it on the second try and it was pretty wild. But sometimes it takes a while. But like you could go tree and salad, and then you could go green and leaf, and then you could go summer. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like there's tons of different ways. Some numeracy example games, like Connect 4, and this is like the Connect 4 is a worksheet that you can use, or you can make it into a huge chart paper. Around the circle, high card, 36. These are just games that you can play that have numeracy components to them. And all you really need is a deck of cards or some dice. And these will also be provided at the end of the presentation. We have a booklet that can be sent out. So relay race, pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to go through all these games because just in the sake of time. Scavenger hunt example. So this is more like a STEM kind of science-based scavenger hunt. So what you do is you cut out your task cards, and then you can just kind of stick them around your area, and then you can get kids to go in pairs or on their own, and then they can go and read the task card together and then try and figure out. This is a bit of a higher kind of level activity. I've tried doing this with grade 4, 5, 6s, and it works pretty well. But just ensure that we're making sure that we're not setting anyone up for failure. So making sure that we're having people around that can help with reading, so that the kids don't feel like, oh, I can't read that, so I can't do the activity. Like, we don't want that, right? So just ensure that you have groups that will be able to do this, or you have the means to at least support the kids to do it, right? Okay, so physical literacy. So, all right, so this is my favorite part of the presentation, because this is when we really start getting into integrating literacy into typical games. And on that note, we're going to do a little reflection here. So I'll get you to go ahead and scan that QR code again. And we're going to think about our favorite game growing up. Your favorite childhood game. So this can be anywhere from tag to kick the can to sardines. It can be anything. And it's just really about reflecting on kind of what you enjoy growing up. And we know that if people enjoy things and they're passionate about it, that when they explain it and when they do those things, it will really show, if that makes sense. Like if you're passionate about art, do art things. If you're passionate about space, integrate space things. All right, so we have some games here. So we have flags, manhunts, hide and seek, tag, Red Rover. Oh my goodness, Red Rover, yeah. Swimming, Marco Polo, yeah. And a lot of these games kids still play. Tag, yeah. And there's a lot of ways that we can still play these games and integrate into educational elements into them. And so I'm gonna get you to start thinking about, well, if I was gonna play this game as a kid and I was gonna learn something or integrate something in regards to educational, how would I do that? Start thinking about it, because we're gonna come back to it. Sorry, I'm just changing my screen again. Okay. Foursquare, yeah. Okay, so wait, literacy can be physical? Of course, literacy is everywhere. It's holistic. Physical literacy is essential to development of physical abilities and knowledge. Gym class is basically physical literacy. Finance, motivation, confidence, and physical competence, knowledge and understanding to value and take responsibility to be physical and have physicality for life, and why we need to be physical and stay healthy. So this supports kids by building their confidence, fostering innovations, trying new things, promotes their self-esteem, increases motor skills development, teaches them healthy lifestyles, and builds them autonomy. And it can also inspire them to maybe try other kind of physical activities or games or sports. So how are we going to scaffold typical summer camp games into learning opportunities? Well, it's easier than you think. Many games already have learning components to them. Consider red light, green light, or hopscotch. Technically, there's coding, and coding is following a base of instructions, a set of instructions, really, in layman's terms. And that's what red light, green light is. It's red light, I know to stop. Green light, I know to go. Remember to use already predetermined skills that the kids may already kind of recognize, or you've used before. So say you play dodgeball one game, or sorry, you play red light, green light one day, and then the next day you add yellow light into it, or some other kind of message. You're going to start small, slowly add things, like I said, and go with the flow. You may be inspired during the activity to just add something and just follow your gut. Like, honestly, there have been times where I've been in the middle of a game and I'm like, wow, this could be a really good learning opportunity for something right now. Like, I'm just going to throw it in there. And especially if you know the kids and you know what they enjoy, it's really easy to kind of integrate things that they enjoy while keeping it educational as well. And remember to scaffold is to offer purposeful, equitable, and intentional support. Okay, so now we're getting into some of the game examples. So instead of capture the flag, we're going to play capture the digits. So instead of flags, it's going to be playing cards. So you'd set up your playing cards on either safe zone, and then you would divide your teams in two, just like capture the flag. Remember to equally distribute your playing cards so that one side doesn't start, higher than the other. You're going to code your cards, so most points will be as they are on the cards, but for jacks and queens, maybe they may have a different value, right? They're going to play the game. They're going to try and steal the cards from each other. If you're tagged, you have to go back, drop your card, that kind of stuff. And then at the end, they're going to, as a group, add up their cards and see which team has more points. Super easy way to integrate numeracy. And you can do this with anything like multiplication, division, do anything. Four corners is one of my personal favorites with the kids. This is the kids go absolutely wild for this one. I have a little diagram here, but you're gonna set up pylons in a square, one at each point. You're gonna allocate numbers to each pylon. So whether that's 1 to 3, all the way up to 12, you're gonna have 2 dice. You're gonna stand in the middle. You're gonna roll those dice, and while they're rolling, you're gonna give the kids about 10 seconds to run to a corner. Once the dice are rolled, you're gonna add the sum. You're gonna find the sum, of those 2 numbers, and then whatever that number is, that corner of kids is out. So they would go, and then if you roll doubles, it's a jailbreak. So those kids come back in, and I like having ways to kind of get kids back into the game, because no one likes feeling kind of left out, or especially on the first round. Then they have to wait, and so it's good to have kind of either quick rounds or ways to kind of get kids back in, right? And you can do this with multiplication too. It just depends on how you want to number your pylons. And you can also do it with subtraction, because I had a kid ask me once, well, why is there a number 1 on this pylon? We can't get 1 with 2 dice. And I said, okay, well, what's another way that we could do that? And they said, oh, I guess you could subtract them. Oh yeah, you could get 1 from 3 and 2. So there you go. So that was actually a really good learning moment for that kid too, because that was critical thinking for them. And we actually did play that game. We actually did integrate that right away. And I said, okay, now we're doing subtraction. And the kids had to switch their mind frame, right? So this is another good one that I like. Hopscotch coding. So in groups of two, you have coding, can create a coding process for your hopscotch. Take turns being the computer and the robot. The computer will draw a series of codes in the box, whether it's arrows, color coded, however you want to do, and then the robot's going to follow that set of instructions, and each kid is going to have a chance to do that. And you can use language like coder or sequence or loop to really kind of throw in those extra learning elements and that kind of vocab. But obviously that's a scaled version. But you could do this with like 4-year-olds. So, or you could do this with like 13-year-olds. Like it's a really like scaffoldable game, I guess. So, and the kids like this one. Okay, so clothespin ninjas. So this is another one that's kind of complex. You'll see at the bottom that it's three peppers spicy. Mainly because it takes a little bit of prep, because you do have to label all your clothespins. But once they're kind of labeled, you can use them over and over again. And you would just throw a letter on them. This game is a little complex. I won't go through it too much, but I will provide the slide for you afterwards. And trust me, the kids really like this one. But just to kind of express, it's important to go over some safety things too, especially if the game is going to be if you're going to have someone blindfolded or using a foam sword like this game. So it's really about knowing the kids as well. Hucklebuckle. So this one, they're going to find a partner in line opposite to them. Solitaire is going to yell Hucklebuckle and then make a statement like 2 + 2, and then the kids are going to run to the middle, and they're going to make the sum of 2 + 2 with their bodies. So they're going to make a 4 on the ground together, and I'll show you. This is an example here of make a J. So this is at our program last year, one of our local summer camps here that we did Hucklebuckle. So you see that the counselor and the kid made a J together. So really sweet and cute, and it's fun. And then they get up and then they run back. And you can do this. You can do this in regards to like, okay, the last partners are out, or you can just do it as a warm-up game. It's really up to you. And just be creative with it. Like you could do a lot of things. All right. So this one, who am I? So this is we've done this with animals in the past, but you could do it with other things too. So the object of the game is to figure out which animal you are by mingling with friends and asking yes or no questions pertaining to animals. So it's good to kind of go over prior to this game, kind of examples of questions that you can ask. What some of those terminologies like herbivore, carnivore, climate, that kind of stuff. It's a really, really good learning opportunity and activity, and the kids love it. So you can tape it to their back with task cards, and then they just kind of go around and ask their friends questions like, do I live in the Arctic? Do I eat meat? And then they kind of just get an idea of what their animal may be. And also, this is a great game for older youth to also kind of help out the younger ones as well. And here's an example of of it in action, I guess. And this is just very like chill. And you can do a lot with this too after. Like I think in this one we were just about to act like your animal. So okay, so now that we've kind of gone through a few examples of physical literacy games that we've kind of integrated literacy and numeracy into, I want you to think about your favorite childhood game. That's not the beginning presentation, but that's okay. And I'll actually throw them up here again. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. And you don't have to share if you don't want to, but thinking about your game, how can you integrate literacy or numeracy into it? And for example, with freeze tag, instead of being untagged, you have to answer a math question. And then once you answer that math question, you go back in. And it doesn't have to be anything huge. It can just be what's 5 times 4, right? And you can scale it to the kids that you're with. If you know your learners' baselines, like we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, you can kind of gauge what kind of questions per kid, right? And that's that kind of student individualized method. But yeah, just kind of thinking about your games, and you don't have to share if you don't want to, but just even reflecting on your own and starting to get, and this presentation really is just starting to get those juices flowing in regards to how you can make learning fun, right? Okay. All right. We're good, eh? Just looking here. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Thanks, Sandra. Playing tag in order for a child to take another person, they need to spell a 5-letter word. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, spelling words, and you can, and that just kind of brainstormed another idea for me, like spelling bee basketball, for example. Like you have to spell a word to shoot. If the other person shoots a hoop, you have to spell a word. Really simple kind of stuff. So slime, who doesn't love slime, right? And so these are some STEM activities or art activities that you could do with the kids. So for slime, you will need some materials, obviously. A lot of the games that we've talked about already, you haven't really needed much materials for, besides like pylons. But with these kind of things, you will need to prep a little bit for them. So certain things that you need to kind of remember in regards to slime for this recipe, it must be Elmer's glue. The contact solution must have saline in it, saline solution. One time we went to a program, and the contact lens solution didn't have saline in it, and it actually didn't work. So we had to adapt the activity in regards to, okay, now this is more of an experiment. So how are we going to kind of salvage this slime? And I think we ended up just putting soap in it, and it kind of worked itself out a little bit. But it's good to make sure that you have the right materials. In regards to some tips, use something to cover your surfaces. As you can see, these are some pictures from the Boys and Girls Club in Thunder Bay, and things can get a little messy. So make sure you cover your surfaces, and tablecloths are great to use, like those reusable ones, especially if you're going to places. Coffee filter monsters. So these are tie-dye coffee filter monsters. The spicy level is a bit higher as well, just because it takes a bit for them to dry once you do the tie-dyeing part. But there will be more directions provided in our resources in regards to actually doing this. But this is another fun activity that that the kids really enjoyed as well. And then we have a little kind of food-based activity with ice cream. So, I mean, who doesn't love ice cream, especially in the summer? So, and you only need 5 ingredients for this. So, so it's pretty feasible. And these are kind of things that you'd probably only do one super spicy activity in a day because you don't want to get burnt out. But pun intended. But making sure that you prep yourself and utilizing your teammates is going to be really helpful. I do have some tips here for STEM and art. Being outside is good. Kind of less opportunities for a significant mess. And I mean, who doesn't love being outside? Like I said, tablecloths are great to use. Prepare and give yourself time to set up. So okay, I'm going to set up this art activity while maybe you read with the kids for a bit, right? And the bigger the project, the smaller the groups. I've tried doing slime with like 8 kids in a group, and that's difficult. Like, so if you have the means, really divide the groups into smaller groups, or maybe even do slime with half the kids, and then the other half can be doing something else with your teammate or something. If you feel like it's going to be a little chaotic. Make sure you test your stuff before you use it. So in hindsight, I should have tested the the solution that we got in regards to slime before I brought it to program, but I didn't. But now I have learned, and I do now. So it is what it is, right? And obviously, we're going to respect the space. Okay, so all right. So for program facilitation, so the last thing you want to do is lose your voice in the first week of summer. We've all been there. Facilitating large groups can be anxiety provoking, and it can be overwhelming. I still get overwhelmed sometimes when I'm with our learners, and that's okay. It's normal. Find techniques that work for you and your team is the best way to stay consistent and get mutual respect and build rapport. So explaining games. So explaining games is a learned skill that many do struggle with. I still struggle with explaining games. The way that I learn games and the way that other kids learn games, or that other people learn games, are obviously different. Nonetheless, like explaining things to children, and then explaining games that maybe you haven't even really played before can be tough. So starting chunk by chunk and starting small, have an idea of how you want to explain the game before you start. There have been times where I've just started talking and it all of a sudden doesn't make sense because I have no kind of, like, I'm not going anywhere with it. So just have like kind of your the things that you want to talk about specific. Ask the group to re-explain, have practice rounds, show examples, use clear language, have patience with the kids. You may have just said something and then a kid raises their hand and they ask the question that you just said. That's okay. Everybody's different. Everybody processes things different. That's all right. If they asked, someone else probably didn't hear it either. Remember to go through any safety measures and explain how to keep us safe, right? Okay, so some tips for facilitation. So using those attention grabbers. I don't know if everyone's heard of them, but an example could be you say macaroni and cheese, and then the kids say everybody freeze. That's a good one. Or there's one where you go alligator, alligator, and then the kids go chomp, chomp, chomp. That's a good one too. Just finding things that works for your group. Staying consistent, do what you say and say what you do, really modeling that positive role model. Avoid games where people get out, I mean, depending on your group, but have a way for participants to rejoin. Yeah, focus, everybody focus. I like that one too, Franny, thank you. And stay on topic, so try not to get diverted, especially when you're explaining games. Try and stay on the topic of the game, because if you're going off on a tangent, then the kids are probably not going to process anything you've said prior to that. Encourage the inclusivity and promote it, and be brave in your own diversity. Like, you can do this by like sharing your pronouns, asking others for pronouns, asking, having a day where people share about their culture, or a day where people share about their family traditions, maybe. Just things to really kind of get them reflecting on like their own values and stuff too. Delegate, and what I mean by that is like I said about the slime, if you feel like you can only manage 5 kids with slime, then only manage 5 kids with slime if you have the means, and have your teammates do another game on the side, and just rotate it. Ask for feedback from the kids and from families, from your teammates. Learn together, so don't be afraid to say I don't know, but let's find out, right? There are times where I'm in tutoring sessions and a kid's like, I don't know the answer to this, and I say, I have no idea either. Let's figure it out. And what it teaches them is that, like, first of all, no one's perfect, no one knows everything, but it also shows them how to find the answer. So, okay, I don't know, but how can we find it? Okay, well, we can Google it, we can go to the glossary, we can look, in our prior knowledge. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to give kids the skills to be able to figure things out on their own. And we're gonna we gotta stay accountable, and we gotta hold our participants accountable. And having weekly rewards or positive reinforcements, incentives. Okay, we're gonna read every morning, and then at the end of the week, we're gonna have a little treat, or you folks can pick the book that we read today, or whatever you kind of want to do. But really just providing those incentives. Okay, so just a little bit about social emotional learning. So just about encouraging it. So using positive reinforcement, encouraging the growth mindset, that I'm sure a presentation 4 will talk about more so. But just a growth mindset is, things are hard, but that's okay. We're gonna work on it together. The power of yet, where it's I can't do this yet, but I'm gonna work on it, and I'm gonna adapt, and asking questions, and being curious, being compassionate, being courageous. If you see something that doesn't feel right, if you see bullying, if talk about it and be curious about it. Engage the kids in those kind of opportunities, because those are when the best learning happens. And integrate social emotional learning into your activities, just like we did with the literacy extensions. Like this literacy extension, another great book with well-being. There's actually a series by P. Oswald and George John about these kind of social emotional elements. But this is probably one of my favorites that he has. So it's about talking about what it really means to be cool, and just talking about friendship and change, really. And then there's a kindness activity that goes along with it. If you so choose to use this, that's up to you. But you can really just kind of talk about it, or have the students, or sorry, the kids write on their own sheet, or chat in groups. But just kind of encouraging that reflection and gratitude, right? Which is a big thing. So here's a couple actually resources that will be provided as well. A couple stress less books for kids. So these will be provided to you, physical copies, and there's tons of great activities in these to do with the kids, and even just promoting one activity a day. And here's a couple. So the one I wanted to focus on was change your perspective. So having the kid read one a day, and reflect on this activity. What do you see in this picture? Some people see a vase, some people see two faces. Both are right, just depends on how you look at it. It's the same with problems. So this is talking about problem solving and perspective. You can get stuck seeing them in one way, but if you change your point of view, either physically, emotionally, mentally, it can help. It can help make the same situation something look very different. And at the top it says, does the word stressed give you stress? Just read it backwards. It says desserts. Who's stressed with dessert? I don't know. All right, so every place is a learning place. So remembering that, learning doesn't stop at school, doesn't stop at summer camp. It's everywhere. It's at home, it's at work, it's traveling, it's recreationally, in your leisure time, in your health. Literacy and numeracy is everywhere. And it's our job to help kids not only see that, and not only give them a break from their well-deserved break from school, but also just to try and mitigate that learning loss that happens. And like I said earlier, only 2 to 3 hours a week can really help lessen that. Okay. And I just have a little slide here about our financial literacy resources. So that'll be at noon. So there'll be some activities that will be provided there as well. Some engagement opportunity as well. Okay, and that's all for me. And I hope you had some fun today. I'll now open kind of the floor for some questions, or if anyone wanted to kind of reflect or share uh on maybe some games that they were thinking of during the presentation that they may want to include literacy or numeracy into.
So Ben, thank you very much for that presentation. There is one thing that I did want to just mention to folks, that you did talk about the junior journalism program, and thank you for including that into your presentation. And this is a program that I've run for years with children in programming in Toronto. And I wanted to just elaborate a little bit on this particular idea, that the very first newsletter that we put together with the children, we asked them to do alpha poems. So for their name. So we would take, so I know, for example, Franny, I hope you don't mind me putting you in a position here. So what I would do is with Franny, for example, F, we would say, you know, Franny is friendly. And then R, Franny is is radical. And then A, Franny is awesome, right? And so have every child have these word affirming, thanks Franny, word affirming adjectives to go with their name. And then the first newsletter, you know, you just put these poems together and you publish it. You have one child who put it together in the newsletter, and then the children read their own poems aloud to the group. And it's a great literacy activity. I guess, again, it supports social emotional learning. And then, you know, the kids can write about anything. And Ben did show the Random Man writing by Max, and Max was an artist. He loved drawing. So we also always included his drawings that he did. So what we would do on the very first page of the junior journalism newsletter, we would have pictures of all the kids with their first names, of all the contributors. And so the kids loved it. So I do have lots of resources that we will be putting onto the website. So not only Ben's recording of this workshop, but other resources around how to run a reading tent this summer, some of the math resources that Ben was talking about. So you'll be able to download them from our website, and also Ben's slide deck. And Ben did talk about the 2 books that I hope some of you did receive, the 2 books already that were mailed last week. If you did not get that book, you can send me a message in the email that I sent you to come to this conference, and I will make sure that you get those 2 books. And again, those books can be used to read with the children in your programming this summer. So that's a literacy activity, but it also supports social emotional development and mental health. So now I see I'm looking in the chat to see if there are any questions. Oh, okay, I'm glad that it was informative. You're so welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. And it is now 10:20. So that means we have a 20-minute break until workshop number 3 and 4. If